Hi, I'm Amy Clark, co-founder of theseniorlist.com. If you have researched paying for long-term care with Medicaid, you probably know there are some strict requirements on how to qualify. One frequently asked question I receive is this: what if I make too much money to qualify for Medicaid, but I still can't afford to pay for long-term care? Today I'm interviewing attorney Meredith Williamson to help us understand more about Medicaid and what are known as income cap trusts. I'll also ask Meredith about estate planning and other tools available to help plan for long-term care. Hi, friends. This is Amy Clark, co-founder of theseniorlist.com. And today I have a guest that I am so excited not only to see her face, because it's been way too long since I've seen her face, but I'm also really excited for the information that she's going to share with us today. Now, it's not information that everyone is going to need in the journey of aging and long-term care, but it is really important specific information about Medicaid and what we call in Oregon income cap trusts. And there are other programs besides Oregon that have this have these trusts, but we're going to talk more about that with Meredith. So I'm going to be talking today with Meredith Williamson. She is an estate planning and elder law attorney practicing in Portland, Oregon. So welcome, Meredith. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's so good to see you.
Thank you. It's so good to see you too. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. So first of all, before we dive into this very specific thing called income cap trusts, I made a video a couple weeks ago about Medicaid. So for those people who have not watched that video, it was just a very general overview of Medicaid and what it is. So I'll certainly reference that video in the description below. But Meredith, if you could just give our viewers just the short and skinny on Medicaid, what it is, and how it comes to play when people are looking at paying for long-term care.
Definitely. So Medicaid is a national program, but run by each state. So I want to start this out by saying your state may have different rules regarding Medicaid. But in general, Medicaid is available for long-term care residents when certain criteria are met. Specifically, their income and assets are low enough and their care needs or activities of daily living are high enough. And that activities of daily living, or ADLs as they're sometimes referred to, are things like bathing, grooming, dressing, rising up from a chair, walking from one place to another, using the bathroom, that kind of thing.
Okay, great. So once somebody knows or is starting the planning process, knowing that long-term care is in their future, that's when they would probably start learning about these things about Medicaid and, you know, the qualifications for that. And that's probably the point at which you would be educating your clients about Medicaid. So, and I can only speak to what I know for Oregon, and I know that's your specialty as well, but you know, the disclosure being that these change a little bit. As you said, it's a state-run, you know, state-by-state program. So the qualifications, especially the income limits, can vary from state to state.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay,
And
so
what assets are considered available resources can also vary from state to state. So some of this information will be important to, you know, utilize here, but seek counsel in the state that you live just to verify.
absolutely, yeah. Okay, so, you know, here's a scenario. My grandmother is needing nursing home care. So I come to you trying to figure out what all her options are as far as paying for it. And we learn that she makes more money than, than the income restrictions allow for Medicaid for her qualifying. So she makes more money, but she doesn't really have any money. So I know it's a spot that a lot of people find themselves in, stuck in this kind of, you know, rock and a hard place for paying for long-term care. So I think that's, where we're diving into the next topic for income cap trusts. So tell us a little bit about how these trusts are set up and how they help people in that type of scenario.
Definitely. So as you know, or many of you know, long-term care can be quite expensive. So Medicaid in each state assesses an income limit, meaning your income needs to be below that specified amount. Oftentimes, though, that amount is much lower than an assisted living may cost. So in Oregon currently, the number is $2,349 is the income limit. If your income is over that, you may be disqualified from Medicaid benefits for long-term care. However, our state here in Oregon has allowed what we call income cap trusts. In other states, they might be called other things like Miller trusts, but it's basically the same type of trust. In this scenario, your income, maybe is $3,000. That disqualifies you without an income cap trust. With an income cap trust, all of your money is going into the trust each month, and all the money is going out of the trust each month. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, how that's structured down the road, but it's kind of an in and out each month. The trust says where each dollar gets to go. So in Oregon, somebody living in long-term care gets to keep $175 per month. That's outlined in the income cap trust, as is all of the payments to the long-term care community. In a spousal situation, some of the money can come out to a spouse. But the gist of the income cap trust is it's just kind of dictating where that money is to go each month, held within the walls of a trust, with a bank account still holding the money, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I'm assuming because it's a trust, there's a trustee that oversees where the money goes and writes the checks and all of those things.
Yeah, so in Oregon, and some states call trustees maybe settlors, but a trustee, or sorry, not a settlor. A settlor is a person who creates the trust, but a trustee is the manager of the trust. So the settlor creates the trust. In a lot of circumstances, though, in your grandma's case, if she was not able to sign the trust, if she didn't have capacity, somebody else could sign for her, creating a trust. The trustee then is the manager of the trust. So there's a creator of the trust and a manager of the trust. The trustee is who would take it to the bank. So we take the actual document to the bank and open up a bank account in the name of the trust. So the money is flowing into the bank account, but instead of being in your grandma's name, it's in her trust's name. The income cap trust of Jane Doe, instead of just Jane Doe. The trustee then is responsible ongoing for making sure that the trust, the assets, the income held within the trust are going out to those places that the trust says they can go out to.
And do the trusts, is that something that does need to be set up by an attorney?
Not necessarily. In Oregon, it's a statutory right? Meaning the law says what the trust needs to state. Oftentimes, though, people are confused by the language, and so that's often when they come to me is, explanation as to what does this mean. Also, an attorney can help maybe with some of those distributions that go out of the trust. For example, in Oregon, we can keep a portion of the money each month towards a prepaid burial plan. That's something that an attorney will say that's maybe not obvious in the statutory form, but finding those things that the client may need that are allowed under the law to come out of the trust. And then kind of walking through like, okay, I have this document, but now what do I do with it, right?
Mhm.
In some circumstances, you also need an EIN. So rather than use your social security number, an EIN is it's a separate tax ID number. The banks either want it, or if there's taxes that come out of the trust, then it has to have this separate EIN. That's also something the attorney can help you obtain or give directions on how to get a new EIN for the trust, or whether you need one at all.
So Meredith, I think we touched on this earlier, but income cap trusts are available in other states, correct? It's not just an Oregon specific thing. And as you referenced, they may go by other names.
That's right. I'm not sure if every state allows them, so that's something you would also want to double check. I know there are some states that may not. Not every state, again, calls it an income cap trust. I know there's some states that call it a Miller trust, relating to, I think, a court case that allowed it. So what you'll want to ask either an attorney or when you're applying for Medicaid, if your income is too high, is if there is a solution to fix the income piece, such as a trust, right? Just refer to it generically. I know there's times where people get told that their income is too high and they just sort of give up on the application process, which is really unfortunate, because this is a vital piece for them. And the income cap trust is, in Oregon, a really easy solution to get someone qualified if income is the only thing in their way.
And so at what point would somebody need to be thinking about getting the trust set up? Is this something that you pre-plan for, 6 months, a year in advance, or is this something that people typically end up doing kind of in that crisis mode where people, all of a sudden something happens,
Right.
They end up going to rehab, never come out of rehab, or never come out of some sort of long-term care setting, and then they're stuck trying to figure all of this out in a very short amount of time. What do most people do? And maybe to piggyback on that, what do you recommend?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I recommend that people do the income cap trust at the same time as their Medicaid application.
Okay.
The reason why we don't need to pre-plan is because it really is just kind of the tool to take care of this income piece. Usually we can get it done and you can make it to the bank, and we just need to show, in Oregon, the caseworker for that it's been complete, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of the steps that take a little longer may be talking to Social Security and getting the checks redirected from one account to another. But at least here in Oregon, it's really a matter of getting it set up and getting the process rolling. It's an irrevocable trust in Oregon. And what that means is that it really can't be changed. And so it may be there may be times that we're planning that Medicaid is the solution to something, and then we never get to it because if somebody passes away or gets an inheritance, or they find a long-term care setting that they can afford without Medicaid. I don't like to see people spend money ahead of needing to, or, kind of tie up finances ahead of time. So I generally do it simultaneously with the Medicaid application.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So speaking of pre-planning, that kind of leads into my next question. What are some, in your expertise and your experience, what are some of the things that people do need to be thinking about to plan ahead, to do way ahead of time, not in crisis mode? Talk to us about some of those tools and pre-planning things that people should be thinking about, checking off their checklist.
Correct. Okay. So, I think everybody should consider long-term care as something that they may need at any point when they're thinking about retirement and post-retirement years. Specifically, though, with Medicaid in a lot of states, including Oregon, there's a time frame called a look back period
Mm.
of 5 years. So Medicaid has a right to look back 5 years to see if there's been any unusual spending or gifting in anticipation of long-term care.
Mm.
So the goal really is for pre-planning purposes to think about this 5 years before you need it. Lots of people can't do that, right? Like, a lot of time, I mean, I think statistically people think that they're not going to need long-term care at any point, but chances are you'll need it temporarily, even for a small portion of your life, if not, for a long stretch. One of the reasons I do estate planning and elder law is because I like to talk about the elder law piece, the Medicaid piece, with any of my clients that may be post-retirement. Even if it doesn't look like they don't anticipate ever needing long-term care, it's a good time to look at what some options may be as far as gifting to kids prior to needing long-term care. So really crucial period is that prior to 5 years. But in any case, kind of the sooner the better. The sooner you go see an attorney, the more options you have regarding long-term care and planning around Medicaid.
Okay, yeah, that's good advice. The same advice we used to give in the senior housing industry: the sooner the better. It just cannot hurt, and you're going to have more options.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And what about things like wills and power of attorney? What, those are all documents that I personally believe every adult should have, not just older
Yes.
adults. But I would love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, I agree. Everybody over the age of 18 should have at least a power of attorney and healthcare directive, or in Oregon, we call them advanced directives. These documents allow you to appoint someone if you become incapacitated or travel overseas temporarily, or for some reason can't make your own financial and or medical decisions.
Mm.
The beautiful part is you are putting the people in place who you want to be the advocate for you and your voice. And then you're also giving them direction on what your preferences are or how you want your money handled. Again, the sooner we have that information, these documents are revisable. So you're able to appoint a new person 10 years from now if you want somebody else in there, or get married and now want your spouse. Your kids are old enough and you can appoint a child. Also, as your money changes, you can revise the power of attorney to encompass more things. But these become really vital, especially as we age and need kind of long-term care or have frequent trips to the hospital. You now have somebody advocating for you and you've given them direction. It avoids the need for court intervention in most circumstances with a guardianship or conservatorship. And again, it's your voice. Like, you're the one who put this person and gave them instruction. So to me, they're beautiful documents to have. The estate planning, the will, the revocable living trust, I think those are also important, primarily for after we pass away or in difficult family situations, for the revocable living trust, or depending on what your assets are. Again, I encourage people to speak with an attorney, just because oftentimes they'll understand the documents better and potentially think of things that they hadn't thought of without speaking to an attorney. So I encourage everybody at any age to at least reach out and figure out what these documents are and how they can really benefit you.
Yeah, there really isn't much of a downside. And I think people need to be reminded that they can be changed at any time. Just because you appoint someone as your representative doesn't mean that that has to be the person for the rest of your life. I know that, we personally in our own family over time have made adjustments and changes to our documents because life changes and things change and people change, and it's an easy thing to do. So I am all for the pre-planning documents. Everyone needs to have them. I always think about the Terry Schiavo case. I don't know how many years ago now that's been, but that has just resonated with me. That, you know, even young people need to have some sort of document in place that expresses their wishes.
Right. It's
Yeah.
better to be prepared and not ever need something, right, than it is to not have something and need it, especially something so vital as your healthcare decisions. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so my last question, which I just thought of here on the fly. So, excuse me for not sharing this earlier, but you know, you of course practice in Oregon, but we know that our audience is from all over the United States. What would you recommend that people look for if they are looking for an elder law attorney like yourself, someone that they need to be able to trust with, you know, really their most personal and intimate details of their finances and their wishes? What kinds of things should people be looking for when they're trying to find someone like you?
I mean, I really encourage people to find an attorney that they feel comfortable with, right? This is really personal. And you want somebody who you feel comfortable telling family secrets to, who you trust won't, you know, who you trust, I guess, with all of your information. I find that if people trust their attorney, they come out with better plans, right? Because they understand your entire situation more. Obviously, look for an attorney accredited in your state. A lot of these things are state specific, and attorneys can't practice law in a state that they're not licensed. So, you know, every once in a while I'll get a referral for somebody in Washington and they'll really, really want me, but I'm not licensed there. Talk to friends and family too. A lot of people have gone through this. This might be new for you, but friends and family might have some really good recommendations of people that they know and trust. If you don't like somebody, but your sister used her, find somebody else, right? We don't have to always go with who our family went with. But yeah, just having that ability to be your true self with your attorney, I think makes a world of difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
They
somebody
really
who's
should.
licensed in this, sorry to interrupt,
No,
somebody
go
who's
ahead.
specific in this area, right? Attorneys specialize in different things often, and so I would encourage people to find an estate planning or an elder law attorney if they're looking at long-term care as one of the options.
Yeah, that's great advice. And to your point that it really is such a trusted position for someone to be in. So do make sure that it's someone that you feel comfortable with and that you trust. That's really great advice. Yeah. Okay, is there anything else we need to cover in regards to income cap trusts? Any parting thoughts?
Yeah, you know, I think I encourage people to, a lot of people I work with are married couples. And so there's some rules that help protect a spouse of somebody that needs long-term care. So, you know, a single person should definitely seek out an attorney, but a married couple where one spouse might not be as healthy as the other one, I think that is a vital, important time to seek out an attorney to give advice so that the person who doesn't need care retains the most amount of resources, income, and asset that they possibly can. So really the married person with an unwell spouse really needs to seek out counsel as soon as possible.
Okay, that's great. Well, thank you, Meredith, for your words of wisdom. Very much appreciated. Thank you for sharing your time with us as well. If you have any questions and Meredith and I did not cover them, please feel free to leave your questions in the comments below, and we can do more of these videos and answer any burning questions that our audience has. So thanks again, Meredith, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon.